Hannibal the musical.
What?
I don't know. I don't know, guys. All right.
From you?
Yeah. Just the inner workings of my mind.
The words that came to your mind at this moment.
It is. That's exactly. Yes. I don't know.
Hello, and welcome to Spooky Sips, where we put our love of horror movies into a podcast and sip some spirits along the way. I'm one of your hosts, Yvette. I'm here with my co-hosts, Laura and Brianna. Hello.
Hey. Okay, so we just finished watching the classic horror movie, Silence of the Lambs. Oh, so just in case you've never heard of it, which would be wild.
Yeah, why are you listening to our podcast?
But it's about a new, almost graduated trainee FBI agent, Clarice Starling, who is working on this case of Buffalo Bill. Mm-hmm. And to get to him, there's another killer that they want to use. Hannibal Lecter. Doctor. Hannibal Lecter.
Doctor.
And that's how the movie unfolds. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
So this is such a classic. I feel like obviously we've all seen it before, but do you remember when you first saw this movie, or how many times have you seen this movie? Like what are our histories with this movie?
I think I've only seen it once, maybe twice before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is not like I haven't watched it a lot. I forget if it was the first or the second time. One of the times I did fall asleep watching it.
Oh my gosh.
Which,
I mean,
I know.
It's a long.
It's
a little long.
No, there's just something wrong with me.
It's soothing.
It's soothing.
It's
It's very
maybe.
comforting.
We were talking about that while watching it.
Mm-hmm.
It's something kind of soothing about
A very
it.
comforting film.
One of the times I didn't finish it, I forget if it was the first or the second time, so I had to watch it again. So yeah, I've only watched it, and it was a long time ago. So watching it again, I feel I'd forgotten so much of the movie.
Yeah.
Like I did not remember most of it. Like I loosely remembered scenes. Like I definitely remembered things like the chair in front of the cell for Hannibal and stuff like that. So like, I remembered scenes, obviously like the well, like key moments I remembered, but so much of the movie was like long gone.
Because it's a really involved movie.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of moving parts and connections and like, I think I was in high school the first time I saw it.
Me too.
And I loved it. And it like really got to me. Like it wasn't even scary necessarily. It was just so disturbing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like it didn't scare me, but it like haunted me.
Yes.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
but then I've seen it a lot. So I've probably seen it at least a dozen times.
Yeah.
I would say over the years.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen it quite a few times.
Because I love watching it with people that haven't seen it. So anytime I had a friend that hadn't, I was like, oh, well, that's what we're watching.
It's like we're all sitting down watching it now.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for the first time I watched it, because it's such an involved movie, and maybe because I was younger, I think like you, I was in high school, but like a lot of it was hard to follow.
Yeah,
because there's so many storylines because there's the Buffalo Bill serial killer, Hannibal's the serial killer, there's Clarice and her training, but then she also sometimes has memories of her past.
That was so
Hold on, that's our food. So, before I was so rudely interrupted by our dinner, we just took a brief intermission to eat. I was basically saying that it's kind of hard to follow, just because there's all these storylines that are happening. And so, each time I watch it, I feel like I understand a little bit more what's happening in the movie. And I'm able to follow it a bit more, just because it's like, it's complicated.
No, it is.
There's a lot happening.
And like, we'll get into this, but they do a really good job of keeping the watcher confused as to what moment is what moment. Like, they do a very good job of keeping you like, wait, I don't get it.
Right.
So,
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So should we just like get into the movie?
Let's do it.
Right at the beginning.
I feel like for so many of our movies that we watch, the opening is like, yes, and like grabs me, sucks me in, and I love it. I feel like the opening to The Silence of the Lambs is a little boring. Like, it gets better with the music and her running, but at first, just the music's kind of boring. It's just this drab, like, scenery that she's about to run through the woods, and
she's just sweaty and
it doesn't
jogging.
suck me in. The beginning of this movie does not suck me in.
Yeah, it's because you don't know what's happening, but it's like not in an interesting, because they didn't even do it where she was running. It's like, oh, she's running from some suspenseful setup. It's you're just kind of like in the woods and someone's running.
Yeah.
And then we realize she's kind of going through like a course, climbing up the little thing. Like,
the rope
it's kind of fun, but it doesn't suck you in as much as other ones. Yeah. Now there was an alternative thing that they were originally going to use, and it's a scene that we see later.
Okay.
So they were going to open originally with like the scene that we see later where they're like busting into the room to like take down the like crime scene, where we see Clarice, who like doesn't check her quarter, and so the gun is coming up to her head. So it was going to start with that and then reveal that it was just a
FBI
scene,
training.
like FBI training.
Okay.
So that was going to be the original opener, but they decided to go away from it because that idea had kind of been done a few times before. It was like, okay, this may be overplayed. So they switched it to the running in the woods and then kept that scene, but just used it later.
Okay. Interesting.
Would that have made it better or worse for you guys?
I mean, I think it would have been a little more like captivating.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, that's like,
but
that's the worst part of the movie is just the opening, and then it only gets better.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
I will say it does do a good job of like introducing us to her character, because I think her character is just really like cerebral. Like she's really in her head. And so having the opening just being her just running, like you kind of get that, like, that's kind of who she is. She's very
focused, down to business. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and then one thing that I did not notice, it's one of those where it's like, people on the internet who are smarter than me and thought through this, pointed out that, that could be a call to the scene that we'll see later where she's talking about how she ran away from the ranch. And she just like, while trying to take the lambs, oh my gosh, and then ran away. So we see her still running,
still
through
running.
the woods, trying to run away from something.
I see.
So deep.
I
so
see.
deep.
So I can see that. But again, we know none of this at the beginning, so I don't think it works as well as maybe something else would have.
But then her like professor calls her in. And he lets her know that she's going to help him because they're conducting a psychobehavioral profile.
Yes.
Because there's this serial killer, Buffalo Bill, and I think he at this point has killed 5 victims. And you see like the newspaper cutouts like all over the professor's
Yeah, as she walks into his office, it's just all of the newspaper
and like
cutout
crime scene photos too, so very gory.
Of like skinned dead bodies.
Yeah.
And so what they want to do is create a profile. So they're interviewing known serial killers that are incarcerated, and they need her help. Which seems like she hasn't graduated yet. She's not even like a rookie, but an actual FBI agent. And you kind of learn like they really do they're just using her because they 100%. They know that she's going to go interview Hannibal a cannibal, and they know that he's just going to like really be into her.
Want her to play with her. He wants to mess with her.
Because she's young and eager, and they're like, oh, he'll love that. So
like dangle it just right in front of him. Totally. Yeah.
Okay, but in this scene, she's wearing like 20 layers.
I know.
We just saw her run through the woods towards this obstacle course. She's wearing like a sweater, and under that sweater, you can tell she's wearing like a long sleeve,
a turtleneck. It's like a turtleneck.
Joggers.
Yes.
And all just 100% cotton. That stuff doesn't breathe.
Right.
That is not what you wear to run.
Yeah. No.
Can you imagine having to talk to anyone?
No. Just and she's just drenched.
Yeah,
like
so
in your
sweaty.
wet clothes.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
It's like, oh, I want to talk to you. It's like, no, I need half an hour.
Yeah, no way.
I need to shower first.
30 minutes before I can see anyone.
No, it was uncalled for what she was
Agreed.
wearing.
Agreed. Times have changed for sure.
Yeah.
Because this was what, 1991?
91.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Oh, she was so young.
Yes.
Like, I kept noticing throughout the movie just how young she was.
Mhm.
Like, she just looks like such a young baby.
Yep.
Yeah.
She did a good job. Like, that acting, like, she did good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the acting in this movie is so well done,
It's
just
so
like
good.
across the board. Mm-hmm.
Including who we meet soon, the Dr. Chilton.
Yes.
So after she gets told that she's going on this assignment, she meets, like, she goes to where Hannibal the cannibal is being imprisoned, and she meets Hannibal's psychiatrist, Dr. Chilton.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just such a creep.
And he's such a, like, slime ball.
He's such a slime
You
ball
know?
Yeah.
creep. And I know that that's good acting because, unbeknownst to me, I met that man, the actor. I forget his name.
Anthony Heald?
Yes. So when I was living in Ashland, Oregon, I worked as a server at kind of a high-end Mexican restaurant. And I was waiting on this guy. I served this guy who was very pleasant. And then he left. And all of the other servers were like, oh my gosh, did you know who that was? And I was like, wait, what? No. And they're like, that's the psychiatrist from The Silence of the Lambs. And they were like freaking out that I was like serving him. They're like, and I was like, I had no idea. I didn't even like,
Yeah.
you should have told me while I was serving him so I could have like appreciated it. But he was just gone. But
you know, he probably appreciated though that you didn't know and
know
you
who he
just
was.
treated him normal.
Yeah.
Like,
It's true.
I really don't remember anything about him. I think he was very pleasant and I think he tipped well. And so moved on. But yeah, anyway.
Nice.
So there's my brush with celebrity.
So he was originally cast as another character, like a smaller character. He was cast as Rodin, who I'm not. It's a little further down the list. So I'm assuming it was a much smaller role that he was originally cast for. But then during a table reading, he ended up reading for it and they were like, no, he's perfect.
He is so
They
so
originally wanted
perfect.
someone older, which is why I think they may have overlooked him.
I see.
But during the reading, they were like, no, he
fits it to a T.
He portrays just that pompous, arrogant, just a-hole, like
slimy.
Yeah.
Like, just like, I'm so important. I'm a psychiatrist. Like, get out of here. No, he did a very good job.
So she goes to the facility where Hannibal is held. And, you know, she meets with Dr. Chilton and he is a slime ball. And she's like, I think this would be better if I was alone. So she goes alone to meet with Hannibal. And you just see down the hallway, because it's like this really creepy brick prison row with cells.
Yeah.
And you see at the end of the cell or the end of the hallway, there's a chair for her placed right outside of Hannibal's. But yeah, she walks through the other inmates and they're just all like yelling at her and saying obscene things because she's a woman.
Especially the one who we learned his name is Miggs. And he tells her that he can smell her. See you next Tuesday.
Right.
Yeah.
And her and Hannibal have their little meet, their little introduction. They're meet cute.
Yeah. I love that all the other inmates had like bars.
Yes.
But he has glass.
Yes.
Which just adds like an extra layer of, you don't need to know who he is, but you know that there's
it's serious. That like he is an actual danger.
He's special.
Right.
Absolutely.
Totally.
And I just feel like Anthony Hopkins, the expressions he makes on his face, the way he stares and talks to Clarice, just the weird like in and out of accents on when he's talking to her, but it's done so well. He's the perfect villain.
No, he is.
He's perfect.
He is. Like,
it's so good.
No, it is. And even like the very small movements of his face, like I don't know how he does it, but like he doesn't have to say anything and you're like immediately terrified.
I just wrote that I love his vibe. But he's also like when he's talking to her, he's very manipulative because he goes back and forth. It's very much kind of how abusive relationships work, where he's alternating between complimenting her and kind of like fanning her ego a little bit, and then just putting her down in the most embarrassed, like mortifying, insulting ways. And so it's like drawing her in, but like lifting her up and putting her down, and
just like reading her. Because I think that's one thing that Clarice was warned about was don't tell him anything about you. Like, we don't want him to know anything. So we get this idea of, you know, he's going, you know, even just little info he can do a lot with.
He's a great manipulator.
So, yeah.
And we get one of the most famous lines of the movie. He's talking about one of his victims, and I can't even remember why he's talking about this victim, but he's like, you know, the last person that tried to, you know, manipulate me or something like that. The last person that did that, I ate him with, what does he say? Are you pulling up the line, Brianna?
No, I was pulling up what fava beans are.
Okay. Well, he really, regardless of how the line starts, it ends with like, I ate.
Doesn't he say I ate his liver with a?
Oh, I ate his liver.
Yeah, I ate his liver with
some
fava beans and a nice Chianti.
And he calls it Chianti, which is not how it's pronounced. You're not supposed to say Chianti. It's Chianti.
Right.
Yes.
And then he does his little like,
which he just came up with.
Oh my God. Amazing.
He just added that sound in.
Oh my God.
Oh, because that's like one of the most notable
classic
horror movie moments.
It's so good. And so in honor of that, what we're sipping on tonight is Chianti, because it's a delicious wine.
Because you have to.
And it's an Italian wine. And so when I was in Italy a couple years ago, like when we were like in Florence was where there was like a lot of Chiantis, and they're so good. Actual Chiantis from Florence are just delicious. And that becomes a big thing later in further movies or later movies of the Hannibal
anthology.
Franchise? Anthology, whatever.
Yeah.
Where like they're in Italy and stuff. So
yeah, and we're also eating human liver.
Yes. Yeah. We're also
so
Did you look up what fava beans are?
Well, it's a broad bean, Laura.
Oh, as opposed to a narrow.
Yes. Yeah. They're similar to lima beans. Like they don't actually have that much flavor just as a bean, but you can make the recipes out of them to make them better, like human liver,
like liver,
much like liver.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as a fun fact, well, I don't think we've talked about it, but this movie is based off a book,
right?
Lambs, and this line was taken almost word for word from the book, with one change. It's not Chianti in the book; it's Amarone.
Okay.
Which is also an Italian wine, but they were scared that Americans wouldn't know what that was. That's why they changed it to a slightly more accessible wine that more people would have heard of.
I read the book about, probably like 6 or 7 years ago. So it's been a while, but I read the book. It's very good.
I haven't read it.
It's very good.
Have you read? Because it's part of like a
so
series,
I read, I think there were 3 that I read. I can't remember the order they go in, but one's like Hannibal. But they were very good.
Okay. All right. Maybe that'll be, I like to read a scary movie spooky season.
Oh, yes.
So maybe that'll be my,
add that to the queue.
So then, and I will admit, especially the first time I watched this movie, I didn't understand what happened.
I didn't either. When I was a teenager, I thought he spit on her.
I thought he spit on her.
That's what I thought. Because I didn't even understand the C word. Because like I had not really heard that word before. So like I thought I couldn't tell what he said.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So
innocence.
So Miggs, as she's leaving, because he's seen her walking to Hannibal, so he knows that she's going to have to walk back past him.
Yeah, because he's right next to Hannibal's cell.
So he's just in his little cot, just
naked,
making some sounds.
And you can hear what he's doing.
So he
ejaculates.
I was trying to think of like a funny way to say it or something. I was like, I don't know how to say it.
He ejaculates.
Like into his hand, and then he throws it on her.
And it gets right in her face and hair.
And it's just so degrading. Like, poor Clarice.
But for some reason, that really gets Hannibal going.
Yeah.
Like, because he instantly is like, wait, come back, Clarice. Yeah. Like, he's yelling for her to come back. And it's this very, like, tense and dramatic and theatrical moment.
It really is so intense.
It's the only time we see him, like, really upset.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's like screaming and reacting. Otherwise, he's very like calm.
Yep,
for
very.
the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Hannibal is such an atrocious monster, but he's got principles.
He does.
And Clarice treated him with respect, so he believes she deserved it. And then when Miggs degraded her, like Hannibal was like, that is not okay.
Right.
Like, I will murder and eat you and torture people, but don't be rude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Like,
because she
have
even
some
says
class.
that at some point. She's like, yeah, he would think it was rude.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
It's like it needs to be classy.
He's a classy killer.
He's a classy cannibal.
Obviously, with the Chianti.
Yeah.
You know? Chianti. Candy.
But so yeah, then when he pulls her back in, and I love the way this is done where it's like, I'm not gonna, because he knows who Buffalo Bill should say. But he's like, I'm not going to tell you, and we don't know how he knows.
Yes.
But he knows, we know he knows something. He's like, I'm going to give you a puzzle. Like, I think, Clarice, I have respect for you, and you're strong, and you're smart, and I'm going to help you figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm not going to make it easy. You're going to have to be smart.
Yeah. Because he says something like, oh, I'm about to make your career or something.
Yes. Yeah, so he gives her a hint about does he say the storage facility? He gives her the hint about the storage facility.
Well, he says something about Moffat.
Right.
And then he doesn't say it's a storage facility.
Right,
He's like, you need to look inside yourself.
Yes. But which was a hint.
It was like the way he said it, like Clarice realized that was weird. That's not like his normal way of speaking.
Yeah, it was cheesy. He wouldn't have said that.
But again, he knew that she was smart enough to figure out that was a clue.
Yep.
And so she looked up where Hannibal was from.
Yeah.
And where he's from, there's a storage facility called Yourself.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Yeah, and the name on it is Moffat. And so yeah, she travels there. And oh man, this scene is so like just creepy. Even just the way that she has to go into the storage unit.
Oh.
Because the it's like a garage door, you know, and it's broken. And so she gets a jack from her car and she like jacks it up and she just has to slide under and she just barely
It's like 6 inches open. Like just barely above the ground. And there was tension.
Right.
Yes.
And I love that right before she goes in, she hands the guy that opened it for her a business card, like, just in case something goes down, you need to call these people for me, okay? Like, I loved that.
When we say storage, it's not like a small storage room. I think even at one point they refer to it as a garage.
Yeah.
And it was like this giant garage storage.
Yeah.
And she's going through with her flashlight and she's, there's so much stuff. I don't know how she's able to kind of hone in on what she knows.
Yeah, and there's a car. And it's like an old-fashioned kind of car. Yeah. I almost thought it was a hearse at first, but I think, because just the way the back door opened, but I don't know, it was like that. I don't know.
I mean, like the shape of it.
Yes, right? So I think it might have been a hearse.
And then it had the curtains.
Right.
In the back, I think once they got inside, it's like, I think it was just like a
yeah, there were like bench seats.
Like a limo kind of thing.
Yeah, so.
Or for comfort.
No car I've ever seen, but yeah. And yeah, she's like searching through it and she finds a mannequin that's dressed up that doesn't have a head. And then she sees another covered object.
Because the mannequin is like facing the covered object. Like if the mannequin did have a head, it would be looking at this object. And
she like pulls it off. And it's just the grossest. Like, just Google it if you want to see it. But it's the grossest head in a jar. Head in a jar with like crazy makeup on, but also a beard. So like, wild like eyelashes going everywhere. And it's very bloated and swollen. And the eyes are like.
The first thing I noticed.
Yeah.
Yes. I desperately want a recreation of that as a Halloween decoration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I want like a high, like
a real human head.
Like a real human head.
Yeah. We can probably make that happen.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I want that.
Yeah.
We've still got a few months before Halloween.
We'll get this for you.
Yeah.
And so then Clarice goes back to talk to Hannibal about what she found. And he gives her again some more clues. Like he refers to whoever put that head in the jar as a fledgling killer.
Yes.
And he does talk about that it's this decapitated patient, but it's almost like he's alluding to that this is a victim of Buffalo Bill, but he doesn't say it.
Right, he doesn't say it outright.
But like you can kind of tell like he's basically saying, like, this is a victim of Buffalo
He
Bill.
insinuates it.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then, again, now Clarice's got to, like, figure out the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's going on? The next thing that happens of note is actually cuts away from this storyline and goes into Buffalo's storyline. Because we see Buffalo Bill with these sweet night vision goggles.
Oh, yes.
Like, I'm like, those are so cool.
Yes. They remind me of like Jurassic Park.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's like looking through these goggles and he sees there's a woman and she's, coming home from the grocery store and her little cat's in the window.
Like, her music blaring.
Yeah.
Got her groceries.
Yeah.
And she sees this man who's it's kind of like he's pulling a Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
Where like he's wearing a cast on his arm, seem like he's
help, I can't do this.
injured.
Yeah.
And he's struggling to he's trying to put this couch in the back of his van.
Mm-hmm.
And so she, being a decent
Very
person,
nice
is
person.
like, can I help you?
Right. Don't ever help anyone is really the moral of the story.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, he's being like loud about dropping the chair. Like it's
like he's obviously trying to get her attention.
Mhm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And loud and like he has the most off-putting voice ever.
I don't even know how to describe it. Like it just gets
I was gonna try it.
so under your skin. It's like this, I don't know. He's like, I need help for you a size 14. Right.
Yeah, no,
It's like so weird
It is
and like
weird.
it's deep, but
Right.
like in a very strange way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, as a quick side note, I will say this movie ages itself a little in the fact that, the girls that he kidnaps are size 14.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody from the grandma to the policeman calls them like, oh yeah, that huge fat girl,
Like
that really giant. Oh yeah, she was a big girl. Like 14 is a very average size.
yeah.
It's like
And they're like making it seem like these are like the largest
like
women.
linebackers,
Yeah.
right? Like no,
he just needs all that extra skin.
right.
It's like it's terrible.
So that.
Yeah. That and
well, there's a lot, but
topics
right,
of transgender,
right.
like,
No, yeah,
Oh,
for
definitely.
sure.
Yeah.
No, there's
Yeah.
there's a lot that.
But
And
that is they bring it up a lot. It happens a lot.
Yeah.
It does.
For size.
And I noticed something, and it just fits in better here, so I'm going to bring it up. That I had never noticed before, but all the Nazi symbols. Did you notice them this time? I've literally seen this movie like 15 times.
Mm-hmm.
Never had caught it. But there's a blanket where in his house, it's like the orange blanket and there's swastikas. And then in another scene, there's like a flyer on the wall and there's more. And I had never picked up on that.
And they don't focus on it.
At
like,
all.
They definitely don't like focus the camera at all to try to show you, oh, he's into this. It's like in passing.
If anything, you're like, wait, was that?
Yeah. No, because I had the same reaction where I was like, oh, was that?
Yeah.
And
It's
yeah.
like a really subtle clue that he's a very bad guy, but
Right.
not
Exactly.
in your face.
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I'd never noticed before.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, then it is when they find
Right.
the victim.
Right. So yeah, he kidnaps her.
Oh, right, yeah.
She
Yes.
gets in the car and he gets her.
Yeah. Okay, again, like get in the truck, get the chair.
But yeah, then now the FBI team is on location where they pulled another girl out of the river.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in a funeral parlor. So they, are going to do her initial autopsy.
Yeah. And Clarice gets to go.
Yeah.
Like, she gets to travel. to
Right,
investigate.
right. Yeah, they have a moment where they're like, well, let's not talk like that in front of the lady.
Mm-hmm.
They don't say it that outright, but that's what they're saying.
There's a lot of sexism in
it's
this
Right.
movie.
clear.
But in her defense, she calls her boss out on it and he hears her.
Yeah.
She's like, what you say matters. And he hears. So I was like, yeah, you tell him.
Strong ass woman.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do, they open the body bag that she was in, and it is, you can just tell because they go through all the people in the room's faces as they react to it opening, and you can just,
Yeah.
oh.
We all put the under the
Yes.
nose. What is it?
So it's,
I feel like I looked it up once before.
yeah, so I
Yeah,
can't remember the
definitely
name
look
of it, but it's really common in like, medical examiner offices and stuff. It's just this really strong smelling. It's almost like mentholated vapors.
Yeah.
So that's all you can smell, and it helps with the smell of the body,
Yeah,
like
that
of the
makes sense.
decay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And so while they're investigating the body, two things of note. One is on the woman's back. It's a very distinct, strange pattern of her skin, the way it's been cut.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you just like, this is gross, but like peeled the skin off the back. It was like
different.
cut in this like
a pattern,
like diamond,
like elongated diamond pattern, which will come into play later.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, they're all like ready to move on, even like the old, experienced medical examiner. And Clarissa's like, no, wait, there's something in her mouth or like in her throat.
Because they take the picture
of her teeth.
Of her teeth.
She sees it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the guy was at first, kind of dismissing her, like, oh yeah, when they're like washed up in water, it's like all this gunk from the water.
Which, like, fair. That's probably true. Like,
but no, when they get it out, it's a cocoon.
Yeah, it's this little bug pod.
Yeah, it's a bug pod.
And so she puts it in a bottle, and like, I don't know,
it's like a liquid,
preserves it. Yeah, she somehow like preserves it. Yeah.
So a fun fact: that first moth cocoon that we see, it was made from a combination of Tootsie Rolls and gummy bears. Just in case someone accidentally swallowed it, it would be edible.
I love that.
Brianna, you ordered the perfect little snack.
Yes, I did.
That's amazing.
We were having some snacks when we watched this movie, and Brianna surprised us with more snacks, and in it
were gummy bears.
Oh my gosh!
I had no idea. It's what's the word? Serendipitous. Yes.
You had intuition.
I knew.
I
could just tell.
Because that's not a normal snack.
No, it's not. We don't usually order gummies.
No.
So I thought that was fun.
Because as we're watching this movie, and I think it was right around this time of the movie, as we're watching this movie, we're all like, I'm a little peckish.
I could go for a little snack right now.
Like, the movie
just as they're like literally opening this dead body crevice. Oh, I could go for a snack right now.
I have some issues, I think.
Oh man. Oh, okay. So yeah. There you go. And then I don't know what.
Well, then it's
like I forget the order of things. There's just so much that I'm like, I don't know.
I mean, honestly, during that scene that we were just talking about, like it was so confusing because we see Buffalo Bill take a victim, and then we see someone wash from the river. So it's like, oh, that's her,
right?
Because as we realize, all of his victims look kind of alike. They're all like the same size ish, like same hair, like, and so. I remember first time watching it, I was like, oh, okay, so that's her. But then they cut to the funeral parlor, and but then when we see Clarice look into like the actual like funeral like ceremony that's happening, it's a man.
When she looks into the casket, but then we realize, oh, she's the funeral home is having a service for someone that's not related to Buffalo Bill. And then the person doing the autopsy on is below. But then she's also having like flashbacks to her dad. And when her dad was like, it was his funeral. So then I was thinking, oh, was the woman, like, was it actually the funeral of the woman, but we only saw the man? Like, it was it was very confusing.
No, that's what I meant by like, it does a really good job of keeping you confused because you think, oh, this is it. And then you're like, oh, no, it's not. Right.
So, and honestly, except that you mentioned that, the first time I may or may not have fallen asleep and wasn't super into it. And I think this is just one of those movies that does not work when you're young.
No.
I think this one it requires full attention to follow what's happening, and it's not confusing and like it's not Inception or anything,
right?
But there is a lot of cutting.
Even the vocabulary is much more mature, and obviously you can tell these are like doctors and of their field, like they're speaking in ways that like you have to understand what's going on. Like a 13-year-old would probably be like, what? Like
you just goes over your head,
right?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, not to keep talking about this scene, but I feel like Jodie Foster did such a good job in this.
Agreed.
She did, as Clarice.
Agreed.
Because they're all preparing to open the body and go through it, and when Clarice looks at it, I mean, because she's doing like the recording, where it's like, oh, I see this with the victim, lacerations here. And her voice is just breaking. Like you can tell she's struggling to do it because that's a difficult thing to
because
see.
she's seeing that as a person,
Yeah.
not just a body.
Yes.
But like she did such a good job of making it look like something that was difficult to do and like struggling through it.
Mm-hmm.
But then we see her push through where it's like, okay, but I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Like,
I actually really like that about her character because like, you know, even after her initial interview with Hannibal, she goes out to her car and she's crying. And I just love that, like, she is emotional. She is affected. Like you can, this is actually a young trainee being in the depths for the first time. And it's like affecting
in
her.
a really serious
right.
way.
Yeah.
So the idea for crying in her car for that scene is the FBI was actually really involved in this movie. They were all for it because they thought that maybe this will help them recruit more female agents if they see this movie come out. So the FBI was all for it. They did a lot of training. They worked with their behavioral health unit.
Wow.
So they coordinated a lot with them. And Jodie Foster spent a lot of time with an FBI agent named Marianne Krause. So she kind of like, you know, under her wing, get her insight on things. And Marianne mentioned sometimes this job is just too much. And it's really overwhelming. And so you do have moments where you break down. And so it was her idea.
Cool.
Like that's where they came up with the idea of her like crying in her car after she comes out of it. Because like, it's like these are, you know, these FBI agents aren't like made out of stone.
They're not robots.
Like, you know,
right.
They see hard things and then it gets emotional. So I feel like that was a really good.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool.
To add in.
Yeah.
And I think you get that from talking to real people who do the job. So I don't know.
Completely.
Cool. You would expect the FBI to be like, oh yeah, sure. Come on in.
No.
We'll show you around.
That's awesome.
Go hang out with some agents.
Oh my gosh, that would be so cool.
Right?
Yeah.
Dang, to like shadow an FBI agent. That would be amazing.
And honestly, it is smart because even though this movie does really portray that because Clarice is young, but also because she's a female.
Right.
They do a good job of showing that it's hard for her to be an agent. She's up against a lot. It's not just like she's any student.
Right.
She's dealing with a lot of sexism, a lot of ageism, a lot of just BS. But even though they did that, I also like, I would totally want to become an FBI agent after watching this movie. Like, I was like, heck yeah, I could be a kick-ass woman doing this job.
Yeah.
Like, it did make it seem appealing. So, that was pretty smart.
It showed that it's hard, but I think it's like, it showed the hard parts too. So, I wonder if they saw
that would be really cool to
number of
know.
Applications.
That would be really cool to know.
After this.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. It's like Miss Congeniality. It's the best movie I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh my gosh, maybe we should watch
that. That is like
that.
my favorite movie. But yeah, because she's a kick-ass FBI agent.
She sure is.
Her and Clarice, they're one and the same.
Like,
you know, they both were in it. Yeah,
exactly.
Anyways,
so it turns out that the victim we did see that we watched get abducted in the car. It turns out Buffalo Bill messed up, and he didn't just grab any regular woman. He grabbed a daughter of a senator.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of press around it, and the reason they know this is because when Buffalo Bill abducted her, he cut her shirt in a certain way and then like left the shirt off
next to her groceries.
So, and that's kind of become like a signature way. Like when he abducts his victims, he cuts their shirt off in a certain way.
Yeah.
So they know that's how they know that he's the one that has her. But because of that, then Clarice goes back to Hannibal and is like, she presents what we then learn is kind of a fake deal of, hey, the senator is saying, if you help us out, as long as we get the victim alive, you get to move to a different prison where once a year you get to go on this island and look at birds. Like, because where he's at right now, there's no windows. And he talks about like that bums him out.
He wants to see some trees, you know, maybe some water.
So then he talks about the quid pro quo. Like, and he's like, I'll help you, but you got to tell me personal stuff about you. Because this is fun for him.
Yes.
This is a game.
It is a game.
Oh, and you can see it. I mean, he enjoys it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And then in that interaction, at some point, Hannibal reveals to Clarice the moth in the mouth, because she talks about that there's a moth found in the mouth of one of the victims, and Hannibal's like, that's significant because it signifies change. And so we're like, okay, something's going on. We're like, Bill wants to change, or like there's some change.
Yeah, and that's where she verifies that that is the same moth that we found in the head in the jar.
Yes. Yes.
An hour ago. Like, we found that out. And so now we know that that is a victim of Buffalo Bill. Yeah.
And then we also get some psychoanalysis happening from Hannibal, because he's a psychiatrist, and he's talking about they use the term in this movie transsexual. Isn't that the term they use in this?
And transvestite.
And transvestite.
Yeah.
But Hannibal is kind of explaining that, Buffalo Bill, he's not a true transsexual
trans person.
He really just hates his own identity. So it's not necessarily that he thinks or that he feels like he was born in the wrong body. It's that he just hates his identity so much, he wants
that to change.
And the next scene of note I wrote down was the other most famous scene from this movie, where we cut to Buffalo Bill and we see his basement.
Yes. Which I just want to see a blueprint of that house, because I'm like, what is this?
It's a maze.
I don't understand, because the house is pretty small and it's just on a Midwest, middle of America block. It's just this small house, but this basement is unreal.
It's so creepy. And there's all these doors and some little rooms
and moths flying around everywhere,
flittering around.
And he has aquariums of human parts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we hear someone yelling for help.
Yeah.
And that's when we go to the well room.
Yes.
And it's just this, dirt floor, empty room with a brick well in the middle of the room. And, it pans down and we see the victim, the daughter. What's her name? The daughter's?
I cannot remember.
Oh, it's Catherine.
Catherine. Okay, so we see Catherine.
You didn't get the senator's message.
Right.
From
I know.
the video.
I know. And yeah, she's just panicked and screaming for help. Yeah.
And we get the line. I said the last iconic line, so now one of you can say this line.
It puts the lotion on the skin, or it gets the hose again.
Yes, it rubs the lotion.
Oh, I'm sorry. It rubs the lotion on the skin, or else it gets the hose again. And she's just holding this little white bottle of lotion. She's just
unlabeled.
Yeah, and she's just bawling and screaming and throwing it on her body, and he gives her a little basket to put it in.
And then she's screaming at him, and then the way
oh my gosh,
so he's looking down at her from the top of the well, and then she's screaming just in horror, and the way he looks at her and screams back in just this deranged way is so good.
Yeah.
The camera angles, the cinematography of this film, so good.
Yeah. Well, because the reason she's screaming, right, is because when he sends the little basket down, I think it has a light attached or in it. Yeah. And so as he's moving the basket back up, she just sees bloody handprints from people who have tried to climb out. And I think we see what was the nail of the victim that we had seen the autopsy.
Right,
we see her nail dug into the wall. And that's when she realizes, I think.
Shit.
Well, because we knew it was the nail because Clarice even mentions during the autopsy, she's she has glitter nail polish. Because Clarice is realizing this is a real person. This is not just a body. And so that's how we know to pay attention to that.
To
glitter.
Like that.
Yeah.
So a fun fact with the house, just since we're talking about it. So when they were doing location scouting for Jane Gump, is his house? His name? Jane.
Yeah.
The actor that plays him, Ted Levine.
Maybe Levine. Yeah.
Ted Levine. He realized that the house that they were using to film was next door to his high school girlfriend's house. So not only was it in the town he grew up in, it was right next door to a house he was really familiar with.
That is so weird. What a weird, coincidence.
Yeah. Can you imagine? It's like, oh, I've been here.
That'd be like if we went back to the Dalles.
It was like your neighbor's house where it's like, all right, this is the house we're using for the movie.
Weird.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I know this is out of order, but I realized we forgot to talk about our first death. We completely forgot.
Oh, shit, you're right.
I did not track it.
No,
I did. But for some reason, I just passed over it.
We're not going to be completely accurate in this because it's a there's a lot happening in this movie.
Mm-hmm. So we're just going to cut back a little
rewind.
bit. We learn about our first death, and it's Miggs.
Yeah.
So they talk about we've already talked about how Hannibal gets really offended that Miggs degraded and disrespected Clarice. And then Clarice finds out from, I think, one of her, teacher, bosses that Miggs is dead. Mm-hmm. And they say they found him dead in his cell and he had swallowed his own tongue after Hannibal had been talking to him all night long.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked it up because I was like, what does that mean? And it is just a common expression for a vary of ailments that can happen. Seizures, if you're epileptic, it's alluding to the fact that you block your own airway with your tongue.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's not really a thing.
Because I was thinking maybe he Hannibal convinced him to somehow bite his own tongue off and swallow it to choke himself.
Yeah. I think the idea was Hannibal talked him into literally swallowing his tongue, where it's I guess that could block your airway. I don't know if it's physically
I don't think
possible,
it actually, but it was a common phrasing. Yeah.
But so Hannibal gets in the brain
and he's gone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, according to medical news today, I don't think it's to swallow your own tongue.
Yeah.
So,
but it was
try this at home.
It was a real thing that people used to say.
Okay. Well, as we were sitting here talking about it, I'm twisting my tongue.
I know. I'm my tongue feels so giant in my mouth now.
Tongues are if you ever pay attention to your tongue in your mouth.
No, it's don't.
It's what is that weird?
You just curse to everyone.
It's so weird. Oh, we need to take another glass of our Chianti.
I know, right? Gross. So lots happening, and I don't know what's the next important.
Hannibal gets transferred.
Yes. Okay. There we are. Yes.
In so the pompous Dr. Chilton gets mad. He learns that Clarice made this fake deal. Yeah. And he gets offended because he wants to be boss because he likes to control Hannibal.
Yeah. How could you do that without me knowing?
As much as Hannibal's kind of a narcissist who wants to control, Dr. Chilton is too.
Mm-hmm. And he does not like the progress Clarice has made.
No, he is very envious.
He's very,
without him saying that, because of course he would never admit to that.
Not.
So he then makes his own deal to get Hannibal transferred if Hannibal gives them a name of who Buffalo Bill is. And so they put Hannibal in this, and this first kind of mask that he's in for the transfer, or just when Dr. Chilton is in the room with Hannibal, it's just pushing in on his nose. It's wire mask that's just pushing in on his nose, and it's so creepy.
It's so creepy.
And he's on a dolly,
yes, no, it's literally a furniture. Yes,
dolly.
Yes. They come with the strap, so you can
that's
look like a refrigerator.
Literally what it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it's amazing. It's just
so weird.
It's so cool. And then they once they then move him even more, they put a different mask, which is that classic. It's gold with just a little bit of a opening for the mouth that has the little bars. But both are so cool.
And we should know, before this was all happening, we saw that Dr. Chilton left a pin within his reach. And
And
then
we see
when
him
it goes
eyeing that pen.
right, and then when it goes back to that same shot, the pin is gone. So we kind of are like, oh, he got the pin.
Like there's something going on.
Yeah, we were led to believe he got the
So
pin.
Dr. Chilton, who thinks he's so smart,
right,
and
actually
so
just like
just screwed everything up.
Yes. So one, I feel like since we're talking about this scene, is his jumpsuit he's originally going to wear. Originally, they were going to go with yellow or orange, which I think is like more typical for like prison jumpsuit, that color. But Anthony Hopkins thought they should go with white, so it appeared more like clinical.
Yeah.
You know, which I thought this was just like an interesting little color change.
That is.
But I think the pure bright white added to it.
Well, especially later.
Yeah, right.
And
Once, yes, we've got a new accessory. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a good call, I think. That was a very good call.
So yeah, he is transferred, and like him and the senator have an interaction, and obviously he pisses off the senator, and the senator's like, "F this guy!" Like,
because he says just,
it's disgusting.
He does this multiple times where he alternates between being like so polite and refined and classy, and then just saying the most crass things,
raunchiest
and it's all
shit.
kind of
like,
raunchy. And so like he asks the senator like if she breastfed the Catherine, and that like
he alludes to the fact that like, you know, when someone lost their limb, like I don't even remember,
like there's phantom pain if you lose a limb, and so he's like, when she's in pain, does like your nipple tingle,
right?
Like it's so gross.
He's talking about tingling.
Yes, it's so
like,
gross.
It's so disturbing.
So yeah, she is obviously very offended and is like, F this. But so they have him in this facility, and I don't really understand it. It looks like a museum.
It does look like a museum.
And no, well, in the credits there was a museum credited, and I was like, that's got to be it, right?
But
like,
why is he there?
But then, like they wheel him into this room, and the cage that's in here is like a zoo animal cage. Like it's giant, and I'm like, did they build that just for Hannibal?
And it's like in the middle of this giant empty room.
It's so weird.
It's very strange.
And there's only 2 guards on duty on that floor, but then on the main floor there's like 50 cops down there. So it's very like and so, but he's given a lot of like freedoms. He can color. He's not handcuffed.
Oh, he's like reading.
Yeah, he can read. He has music. He has a private bathroom area, like
this little curtain,
right?
And I think was the idea of that is that they're holding him there until they transfer him to somewhere more
so
permanent?
my guess was like it was such a nice area because the senator was like, let's provide him with a very nice housing until we transfer him. And then she learned he was like not going to give her anything and was just playing with her, but they had him and they had to leave him there. So that's kind of what I figured.
And I like how, when he's there, Clarice does get to come and visit him.
Right.
And so when she's visiting him, again, they're doing a little bit more quid pro quo. Quid pro quo. Why is that so hard for me to say?
Because it's so hard.
And
quid
so
pro quo. No.
Quid pro quo. And I love how like when she first comes to talk to him, like he can be so funny sometimes. Because she like walks up to his little cage and he's like, Clarice, they'll say we're in love.
That's so funny.
So funny.
We're love.
And
his delivery of all of his lines, because it's such a wide spectrum of what he says, every time is perfect, whether he's being like a total creep or just this laid back funny guy, like nails the delivery every time.
Yeah.
And so like they're having a back and forth, and like Hannibal mentions to Clarice that Buffalo Bill covets things. And he's again giving her more clues. And she says something, and this line I didn't quite understand. She said something like, your anagrams are showing, Dr. Lecter.
Yeah, because the names, when you reconfigured them, like was the real name. So he would tell her something false, and that when you anagrammed it, and it was the correct thing.
So she was just mentioning.
So she was saying like, I broke the code on your anagrams,
Well,
I think.
I think the one she was referring to is the name he gave the senator. That anagram was the like scientific name for fool's gold.
Yeah.
So it was like the name you gave them stood for fool's gold.
Like she could
So she was like, give me the actual
like,
name.
I'm figuring it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And I forget if it was during this conversation or a previous one where he had also let her know that because it's important that the first victim, the head in the jar, it doesn't match any of the other women that have been killed.
Right.
And that's because that first victim and Buffalo Bill, who has a different name, I forget what it is, but they were lovers.
And it was a man.
Yeah, it's a man. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But since then, all the victims have been women.
Right.
But
but there's also been nothing sexual with any of the female victims.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But also in this back and forth, we learn why the movie is called The Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
So in the earlier conversations, Clarice had revealed, because Hannibal asks, about kind of her childhood. And, her dad was a cop, but he died when she was 10, and her mom had died before that. So then she went to stay with her uncle in Montana, but she only stayed for 2 months. But she very much does not want to talk about why she only stayed there for 2 months. So she's revealing all these like really awful things, but Hannibal knows like something's up with why you only stayed 2 months.
Yeah.
And we learn that something woke her up very, very early in the morning, kind of like middle of the night. And it sounded like screaming.
Yeah. Like child
screaming. And so they lived on a sheep and pig farm or something.
Yeah, something.
Yeah,
sheep
a farm.
and horse.
Yeah.
And it was the lambs. They were crying.
They were screaming as they were being sent to slaughter.
As they were being sent to the slaughter. And she tried to save one. She tried to carry the little lamb. But she was small. She was little.
She was 10. Right.
So she was wanting to run away, but she was like, if I could even just save this one lamb. But the lamb was really, really heavy. And so she couldn't, she made it only a couple of miles.
Yep. And they found her.
And then the uncle was so mad, he like sent her away to live in an orphanage, and they killed the lamb anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so she has these recurring dreams of the screaming lambs.
Okay, so for the scene, there are a couple fun facts. One is that after she says, "Oh, I thought I could save just one," before she said she had to drop it, you can apparently hear something drop in the background. I didn't catch it.
I didn't either.
I definitely did not hear it. But I guess a crew member like dropped like a wrench or something, like a tool in the background.
Oh my gosh.
But Jodie Foster just didn't operate. Phased. Kept going with the scene.
Oh my gosh.
That's the one that they ended up using. But it's like as soon as they cut the scene, she was like, "Who did that?"
Yeah, come on. Like, what do you do now? What do you do back there? Oh my gosh.
And then also for this scene, so we've talked about this a lot. During this movie, there's a lot of cutting back to seeing other things. So originally it was planned that while she's saying this, we would cut to like a farm in Montana and like see this play out.
Yeah.
But Jodie Foster just did such a good job, like painting that image
that you didn't need it.
Wasn't needed.
Yeah, you didn't.
Yeah. So at one point, the director was like, "Well, guys, we're not going to Montana.
Right?
We don't need the scene." But I honestly feel like it was good that they didn't have a family scene there.
I agree.
feel like the moment between Clarice and
was best
Hannibal
left just with them.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't think you need to cut away and show it to us. You can just
because you literally visualize it on your own.
Yeah, it's not a hard thing to imagine.
Right. Like,
I almost think it's better because it's like the lamb and the screaming is in her head. So like,
exactly.
Keep it
so I actually think that was a good decision to not film that additional.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely.
So what did she say? She just said she heard the screams.
Yeah.
In her dream.
Yeah.
Right? Did we get any other info?
Yeah, well, because then he asks her like, "Oh, do you think if you catch him in time to save Catherine, will the screaming stop?" Like, and I think that's where like Silence of the Lambs comes from.
They want to make it silent.
Yep.
Yep.
Do lambs scream?
They do.
Do they?
Yeah.
Are you looking at him? Look at him.
No. I mean,
Let's hear it. Let's hear what Clarice hears.
well, no, that's just a.
I guess oh, that's upsetting. Oh, I don't like it.
No, he's not being hurt. He's okay. He's just.
That does sound like a person.
Yeah, no, I don't like it. Okay, are we ready for the dream analysis? Okay, so lambs and sheep can symbolize kind of going along with the herd, blind obedience. We actually, I think, have talked about
We
this.
literally did a movie called Lamb.
Oh, we
We did a movie
Yeah.
called Lamb.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this in Nightmare on Elm Street because one of the girls' dreams
Right.
is she sees a lamb.
Yes.
So it kind of it symbolizes this obedience, this
Mhm.
going with the
Mhm.
herd.
Okay.
And screaming, it can be multiple things, but I feel like in Clarice's dream, I think the scream is serving as a warning.
Mm.
And the scream can be as a warning.
Mhm.
And it's like things that you need to be aware of in your waking life. And so I think, first of all, I think Clarice is just having a memory of the screaming lamb. But also it sticks with her and resonates because it's like this warning to not just be to like do blind obedience.
Mm.
Like just let the men in the kind of like judge her and tell her what to do. It's like that it's this warning that she should
Mhm.
stick to her guns and continue to be this strong woman.
Nice.
And I think that's what she's
Mhm.
doing.
Agreed.
So I think that's what her dream means.
Mhm. Agreed.
Okay. Yeah.
Also, after we learn about the lambs in the movie, Dr. Chilton comes in and kind of like kicks Clarice out because he's a jerk. But Hannibal frantically is like, he said something to Clarice earlier, like, everything you need to know is already in your file.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then as she's being kind of kicked out, like, hey, you have a flight to catch, we're sending you back. Hannibal's like, oh, wait, your case file. And he hands it to her.
Mm-hmm.
And instantly I was like, well, Clarice, they make her so smart. Why would she not instantly look in the file?
I know.
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
clearly he put something in there for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she doesn't think to
I
do
mean,
it.
she's under a lot of stress. There's a lot happening.
Yeah,
you
That's
know.
true. That's true.
I mean, she'll get to it later.
Right.
That's the
You
one
know.
mistake I think she makes.
Yeah.
Is that she doesn't instantly look in there.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, she is not even an FBI agent,
That's
which I think
true.
is part of, we can forgive her character because
Yes.
she's basically the equivalent of like an intern.
Right. Yeah.
At the FBI.
Yeah. Like in the just
Trying
thrown
to-
into the depths.
Yeah.
Well, also, she's like still in classes. She's about to graduate.
Yeah.
Like, she's got other
Like
things
she's
going
got
on.
homework.
She's got
Like
finals.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I have midterms tomorrow.
Right.
Hannibal, you just gotta spell it out.
Right. Yeah.
And then I love, so she's gone. Hannibal's in his cell. We know something's about to go down.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love how deranged he is because in this cell where he like gets special treatment, he orders a second dinner. Like the
Mhm.
cops are all annoyed that they have to bring him second dinner.
Yep.
And it's lamb chops.
Yep.
Rare.
Rare.
Extra rare.
And
I mean, of course.
He gives such empathy to
Mhm.
Clarice, but also is just so effed up.
Mhm. Yes.
Like, ooh, that story about the lambs that caused you such trauma.
Mhm.
Like, I'm going to eat one.
It's like us getting our
Some.
snacks,
It's like
you
us
know?
Well,
Exactly. And then we get our second and third deaths.
Yeah. And it's intense.
it is.
So yeah, the two cops are bringing him his second dinner, and yeah, they're like annoyed, but whatever. And Hannibal had been like behind his curtain area, like his little bathroom,
Mhm.
and we see him spit out just this tiny little piece of metal, like
Yeah.
it's just something small, and he like puts it between his fingers. And so when they handcuff him to the bars because they put his hands behind him, he's able to unlock his handcuffs with this little metal thing
That I think came from the
from the
that
pin,
he-
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And man, this part goes down so fast. So like,
He after he's unhandcuffed himself,
Mhm.
he the cop gets close to him and he like bites the cop.
His cheek. Yeah.
Like, and he doesn't just bite it. He
like when a dog has
off.
a toy, he like
like he tears out pieces of the flesh.
Right.
And then also handcuffs the cop.
Yeah,
the other one.
Yeah.
To the bars.
Yep.
In his museum cell.
Right.
Which I guess is supposed to be like the town hall or something.
Okay.
I think that's kind of the
Okay.
equivalent of what it's supposed to be.
Okay.
But yeah, so he has bitten the one, and then the other one, does he stab him, or what does he do?
Yeah, so the cop who he bit the face, he then bludgeons with their
'cause
stick.
he gets
their
their
knife
He
stick.
gets their stick,
Like
that's
the
right.
cops,
Yeah, so he
right.
bludgeons that, and that's when we see the contrast of the blood on Hannibal's face. So he's got the blood from where he ate the guy's face,
Yeah.
but then also all this splatter on his clean white outfit.
Yes, it's so good.
And then we realize that the other guy is like farther out. He like is trying to get away. He's like crawling on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of where we see the extent of things.
Mhm.
And then the people all on the main floor are like, wait, what's going on? Like the elevator,
It's one of those
is
elevators
where
you
it
can
tells
see what
you.
floor.
and they're like, radio one of the cops, and all of a sudden they're suddenly like, oh shit,
Mm-hmm.
it's going down,
Mhm.
like quick.
Yeah, they're immediately like clear 10, anything within 10 blocks.
Yes,
We
10
need
block
an ambulance.
radius.
Like they haven't seen anything, but it's like, no, we're gonna
They
need an
just
ambulance.
know.
We're gonna need to for the SWAT team.
Yes.
Yep.
Clear the neighborhood. It's
Yep.
immediate all hands.
Yeah. So they go up to the 5th floor, and the light is just like kind of flashing, and they just see like a winged angel
Yeah.
of a shadow on the
Oh.
bars of the cage he was in.
Mhm.
And it's, the one cop, he had tied him up with like a banner behind him, so it really looks like wings.
Yeah.
And then had just like degutted him, and
Yeah.
his intestines were just
Yeah.
fall. Oh, didn't we just watch another movie where that happened?
I
Where
mean,
their
I think-
intestines were.
I think that happens in a lot of movies.
But I really feel like we
does.
just, I don't know, it made a bell ring.
Huh.
I feel like something. I mean, it wasn't in the show Hannibal, was it?
It might have
It
been.
may have been.
It might have been. Yeah.
Wait,
That's
weren't we
definitely
just,
we've seen that before.
Right.
weren't we just talking about intestines? Oh, because we were talking about on the way to
Yeah.
brunch this morning. I was like,
Yeah, we were
why
talking about
was I
surgery.
thinking about the way that intestines fit in a body?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we were literally just talking
thinking
about that.
this.
Because we were just talking about it on the way to brunch. That is
Mhm.
funny.
Because that's what we talk about in the way.
Yep. Yeah. So that guy's dead. And then the other guy, like Pembroke, or I don't remember.
Pembry.
Oh, Pembry. Okay, yeah. Is on the floor, and his face is just cut up crazy.
Yeah.
And then he's like barely breathing. He's going in and
Yeah.
out of
But
conscious.
he's alive.
Yeah, but he's alive. But they're waiting for the ambulance to get there, and finally it does. And then he starts seizing once he's on the gurney,
Mhm.
and they're in the elevator going down with him, and a few blood drops trickle on the sheet, and they're like, "Oh shit, he's on the roof of the
They're like,
elevator."
Hannibal's got to be up on the roof.
Yeah.
So they get the guy on the cop on the gurney out and
Mhm.
rush him out.
Into the
And then
ambulance.
And then they make an attack plan to get Hannibal down.
Mhm.
And it's just a dead Hannibal. Like they shoot him in the leg, he doesn't respond.
Mhm.
And then he falls through the roof. And that's when we realize, wait a second,
That's not.
That's
Hannibal.
Pembry.
That's Pembry, but faceless Pembry.
right,
Yep.
Faceless Pembry.
His skin,
Right.
the skin on his
It's just
face
totally
is
gone.
Yeah.
But that's Pembry.
And so we now go back to the ambulance, and the one, paramedic is radioing, so his back is turned. And we just see Hannibal kind of like sit up, and then he just like takes off
Oh,
the face of
Pembry's
Pembry.
face.
yeah.
Like
And he
it's
was
like
just
a
wearing
mask.
as a mask,
Yes.
and it's just so bloody and gross.
Yeah.
And then this is where I wrote down, like, I think this is deaths 4 through 7.
Right, because
Yeah,
they
'cause
all
they
had to have
say-
died.
They all died. So we know it's multiple.
Right.
We know it's multiple.
Yeah.
So I think so the two first there was, Miggs, then there's the two
Mhm.
cops, and then I'm thinking a few paramedics. So I'm thinking about 7 had died now at this point.
That seems fair.
Yeah.
Yep, I think that's accurate.
Mm-hmm. And because they said something about the whole crew plus a tourist.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and he killed a tourist. That's right.
Yeah,
that's
for some reason there happened to be a tourist nearby when Hannibal was sleeping, and he killed them too, just for fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then Clarice, and we should also talk about the other. I don't know that we probably heard her name, but I don't remember it. The other female FBI student.
Oh yeah, her friend,
who was Clarice's friend. With the most beautiful hair.
I know.
Like the curls on this girl, what products does she use? Yes. Like the most beautiful hair.
Yeah, I think they were like roommates too.
Yeah.
Because they were like in their room talking and like working it through. Yeah. And this is where Clarice discovers that Hannibal had written a note on the map. Yes. Basically just being like, this is a pattern, or it's too perfect to not. I don't remember what.
Yeah, I think when they're looking over, because hold on, I'm trying to remember what it was. Because Hannibal tells her something about how we obsess over what we see.
Yeah, we covet what we see every day.
We see.
Yes,
like we covet what we see, and so then he had also written down something about it's not random enough. Like at first they were thinking there's no pattern to where the victims were found, and there kind of wasn't, except for there is a break in the pattern. The first victim was the only victim that that Buffalo Bill took time to try to hide, whereas every other victim he hasn't cared.
Yeah, so she was actually discovered after the third.
She was discovered later.
Right.
And because she was the first victim, it's like, wait a second. That was the start, and it wasn't random, and then it became random after her, but she's the exception.
So that's where she discovers, like, oh, he knew her.
He knew.
Like, they were in close relation, whether they saw each other every day or what have you. So she goes off to Frederica's hometown.
Yes.
And that was the first victim, Frederica.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, who's Frederica?
Sorry.
First victim.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then we get one of my favorite scenes. It's just Buffalo Bill being freaky.
Oh, dancing.
Like
and
the music.
Dressing up. No, the music is iconic. Like this
it's
scene
been stuck in my head since we watched the movie. Like I'm just dancing to it in my head. But yeah, he's just like, he's putting on makeup and he's dancing to this like really upbeat music.
Right.
And he like, they should do a really close up of his nipple ring, and it's just
that's where they start the scene.
Like, why?
Yeah.
Why did we need that?
Because it's gross.
And it was just one.
Yeah, just one nipple. And I love that that's the scene that made us all the most uncomfortable.
Right, not like the skinned humans.
So I think that got the biggest reaction out of all of us while watching it. We were all like vocal. We were like, oh.
Yeah.
Like actual blood.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what got us.
That was it. No, thank you.
It's so upsetting. And he's just like, as he's like dressing himself up, he's like saying in the mirror, he's saying like in his creepy Buffalo Bill voice, like, would you fuck me? I'd fuck me.
Yeah.
I feel like that has been referenced. So like, I feel like you'll see it in like TV shows.
Yeah.
Like that gets referenced a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing.
And he's naked. And he just tucks himself in.
He does a little tuck. So like and this is a movie where I think probably you technically couldn't show a full naked man.
No, right.
Because you can't probably show like a penis.
Right.
But because of this little tuck, like he was full naked and full body shot, but you couldn't really see him.
It was a pretty robe on. It was a beautiful robe. Silk robe. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so then I'm trying to remember like when we know that at this point Crawford, her boss, is like, oh, hey, we found him and we're en route. So that's kind of happening while she's going to Frederica's hometown. Yes. So we've got these two things happening at the same time. Yeah. So the FBI is going to, I don't remember, Chicago or I don't know, whatever.
Some like red herring.
Yeah, they're going where they're like, oh, we found the guy. This is Buffalo Bill. And she's just going to the hometown.
Yeah. just to investigate,
right.
a little bit more of the relationship.
But I love the way that they filmed it because like they really film Buffalo Bill's where he is
and like
what's he doing
in the house
with what Clarice is doing with what the FBI is doing.
Exactly.
And so it looks like it's all happening at the same time and we can't tell what's going on. Like what's
can't
what.
tell what house is what. Like it's like this double closing in on and you're not sure like is the FBI closing in on Buffalo Bill's house or the wrong house or
it's hard to tell.
Yes.
It's really cool the way that they do it.
Yeah. And so we see his doorbell ringing. He's got like a light thing in his basement so he knows. And at this point Catherine had gotten Precious, the little white dog, had like tricked her into getting into a bucket and falling down the well. So. And so she's like, I'm going to kill your dog if you don't save me. Like, and so he's freaking out. She's screaming. The dog is barking. And that's when the doorbell is going off. So he gets dressed and he goes upstairs. And we expected, at least this is what I felt like, we expected it to be the FBI at the door.
Yeah.
But it was Clarice.
Yep.
So we're like, oh shit. Because she's just by herself. She's just there alone.
So we see Clarice going in and saying, "Oh, hey, I'm looking for forget the name of the
Littman or
whatever. I'm looking for them." And we see her interacting with who we know is Buffalo Bill.
Right. Yeah.
At the same time, we see the FBI officially bust into the house, and it's an empty house.
And her boss Crawford is like, Clarice.
He's like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah.
Like he knows.
Yeah. But we do know though, because she had mentioned before. Her boss sent her to this house that he thought was like important, but not that important.
Right.
Yeah.
She was like, well, I'm only 400 miles away. Like, let me come. So we know that they can get there kind of fast.
Quick enough.
Like quick enough.
Right.
But we know it's going to be a little bit of time.
Yep.
Right.
So they're having an exchange because she's looking for the son of this lady who owned the house. And he's like, oh no, I moved in 2 years ago. I don't know who that is.
Or something.
Right. And he's like, so let me give you their info. And we're realizing along with Clarice that like, oh shit, this is him. This is it. Like,
and I think she sees a moth.
Right. Yes. Cause she does. She sees the moth.
She sees the moth and she's like,
oh shit,
God.
It's happening.
Yeah.
And so she draws her gun and of course he runs and we had seen that he had a gun on the stove. So like, we know that he's armed too.
Yes.
But he goes down into the basement and she kind of finds her way to him going through the maze of the basement.
She passes through a room where she sees the suit.
Oh yes, the woman's suit.
The woman's suit.
Yes,
and it's just like this hanging skin from like
one
a mannequin,
boob.
like with one boob.
And then she goes in through a bathroom, and oh my gosh, this one got me. Like it's literally just human soup. It's like a body that's been there for 1,000 years, and just
gelatinized
human soup.
It's
disturbing.
And there's just moths and bugs everywhere, and then she does find Catherine, and she kind of closes the room off so she can go talk to Catherine, and she's like, I gotta go get help, I'll be right back. And Catherine's like, no.
She's like, don't leave me.
She's like, what are you doing?
Like, I think she's like, don't leave me, you stupid bitch.
Which like totally get it.
Totally get it.
I love that reaction from her.
And then we're now Clarice is in this pitch black dark room where like total sight deprivation, like she cannot see a thing. And we are now seeing Buffalo Bill's night vision, and he's just right next to her, and he's even like putting his hand almost on her, but just kind of,
that's such a cool scene.
Oh, it's so cool.
This scene I feel like was a little long. Like I felt like
I do agree.
It went a little too drawn out, but it was also really, really cool.
And then basically there's a shootout. And she gets Buffalo Bill. She shoots the shit out of him. And she like is able to open a window and she can see again.
I think
she had like shot out a window.
Shot the window. Or one of them in their shooting the window.
And then next thing you know, the FBI is at the house and they're taking Catherine out, who's now adopted Precious.
Yes, I didn't
like that.
No, it's my dog now.
My dog.
Because that's the thing. Like we've said this so many times before, but like we can see the most atrocious shit, but don't hurt a little dog.
No.
And you could tell that Catherine was like, she was threatening the dog because she knew that's the only leverage she had. Yeah. But she wasn't gonna, hopefully not hurt the dog.
Mm-hmm.
So one, I'm not a gun person.
No,
but if you were, you may have caught this. The type of gun that Buffalo Bill had. So this big scene with the shootout. The reason why Clarice hears him is because he has to pull back the clip. Yes, I guess technically. The type of gun that they used for that scene is a Colt Python, which is a double action, which means that during that scene, all we would have had to do is pull the trigger. He would not have had to pull the hammer back.
Amateurs. So, amateurs.
Technically, that was the wrong type of gun to use for that scene.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I did not catch that.
Right. Yeah, and then we go to Clarice's graduation. She's now an official FBI agent. Yep. You know, and her boss are like, yay, good job. Like, they have a moment.
I feel like during that scene, I was like, I'm sorry, how is this not cutting to her getting like some sort of medal from
I know, for the love of God.
Or the senator or whoever's daughter she just saved.
I agree.
Like, she should have gotten more recognition, I guess, because she's just a student.
Yeah,
I know.
It's like, oh, and here she is graduating. I was like, no. I mean, that's great.
I know.
Like, where's her gold medal?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Her key to the city or whatever.
Yeah.
At
least a key to the city.
Right. But yeah, then someone's like, oh, Clarice, you have a phone call. Mm-hmm. Dun, dun, dun.
And we all know who it's going to be.
We all know who it is.
It's Hannibal.
And I love it because she's just in this hallway by herself. And there's so much happening. Like, there's so many people, but she's just in this hallway alone. And it's a cord phone because it's 1991. Yeah. So you can, like, see her look around the corner like,
hello.
Somebody come.
Yeah.
But he even says, like, I won't be on long enough for the trace, so don't bother.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's got this, like, blonde wig. He's got this long hair.
And this island tropical city because he's made his way to the Bahamas.
Yes. And he said, oh, well, I have to go. I'm having a friend for dinner.
Yeah.
And
you see he's kind of stalking
Dr. Chilton.
Dr. Chilton. Yep.
Classic.
I love it.
So good.
And then you just see him walking off into the Bahama sunset, stalking his old friend that he's going to have for dinner.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So good.
And the movie recommended right after this one was Bring It On, All or Nothing.
Yes.
I don't understand.
I don't get it. I don't.
No, it wasn't even like, recommended. It was it was one of those kind of like auto play
next up. Yes.
Yes. I don't understand.
I don't either.
It's not like I'm watching that movie.
I know.
You're just always on to Bring It On.
Yeah.
I mean, I do love Bring It On.
I know. The original is
the original is good. I don't know about the other ones. I think I did see the second one, but like the original is classic.
Now, speaking of that, have you all seen the other movies?
No, I haven't. I did not realize there was because I think it's a prequel and a sequel.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't even realize those were out.
Yeah, Edward Norton is in the prequel, I think. And then Ray Liotta and Julianne Moore are in the other one. So it's been 20 years, so I think it's okay if I spoil something.
I think so.
Absolutely.
But I just have like a core memory of I was still like young. I think I was like a late teen or early 20-year-old, and I watched the one with Ray Liotta.
Yes.
And there is a scene where he's having dinner for Ray Liotta and Julianne Moore, but she's drugged.
Yes.
And Ray Liotta just seems kind of out of it, right?
Okay.
And
I can't believe you haven't seen this movie.
No,
that's so good.
That's when Hannibal walks over and he's got like a little hot plate and he just goes like this and lifts off Ray Liotta's skull.
Because he had like previously cut it.
He had a hat on.
Like a craniotomy.
Cuts out a part of his brain and fries it up right there and feeds it to him.
Oh.
I have never in my life actually thrown up in a movie. I instantly just started vomiting.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Full on vomiting.
So that was the movie I saw before Silence of the Lambs.
Oh.
I think that one's just called Hannibal,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that on a date in a movie theater in high school, and it was awful. No, actually it was really good, but it was like...
well, that's one hell of a date night.
Yeah,
movie.
date night. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
here's the thing. It was actually kind of nice because, like, you know, I kind of liked this boy, and you get to be scared.
No, yeah, when you go to a scary movie, right? Like, oh my gosh.
But like this one seems extra.
No, this is like just fucking disgusting.
Honestly, I love Silence of the Lambs, and we'll talk about like our ratings later.
Mm-hmm.
But the Hannibal, that one is like so disturbing that it is really scary.
No,
I think. Like it's good.
It is.
It's
and I
really
feel like
good.
I don't remember the one with the red dragon as much, but I feel like I liked it. I don't
that
think
one's good too.
Yeah.
That one, like you watch a scene, I think it's that one where Hannibal convinces someone to cut his own face
Nice.
off. Like he's actively cutting his own face off. Like there's
No, it's
effed
so
up
disgusting that I'm like, who thinks of this shit?
it's bad.
Yeah. Well, apparently Jodie Foster was originally going to be in I forget if it's the prequel or the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's in the sequel. But I guess the original script had Lecter causing her like chemical brain damage and then becoming her lover. And so that's why Jodie Foster decided to turn it down.
That's fair.
And then they later changed the script
To not have that.
Which is something that she would have gone for, but at that point they'd already gone with Julianne Moore.
I see.
And Julianne Moore did great in it.
Right.
And there are undertones of that in Hannibal, because like he does drug her, and so he's like having her dress up. There's always this, like,
you're
sexual,
like a little worried that it's about to get.
But I do kind of like that about this, because it's so off-putting that there's always this sexual tension between Clarice and
you're
Hannibal.
just like in fear that it's about to go there.
And it's so wrong, but it's like.
And it is Anthony Hopkins in all of them, which like you couldn't have done it if he wouldn't have agreed. Like
for sure.
You can change Clarice, you could not change Hannibal, in my opinion. Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of a lot of fucked up shit, should we get into some psych?
I'm so curious.
Okay, now just remember, she nor Dr. Hannibal Lecter are not real doctors.
Right.
So it's okay.
But yeah, it's okay because they're not real people.
Right.
Yeah.
Y'all, I went down so many rabbit holes, which we can't talk about them all because we don't have the time.
Right.
And like a little bit of it gets a little more true crimey. But I will have to tell about some stories because they're so effed up. Like it's just
I'm so excited for your segment.
Agreed.
It's just gonna be a 5-part Laura Psych segment.
A 10-hour spooky system.
Sign up for our Patreon for our Patreon to get the 10-hour extended edition.
Yes.
It's so good. So okay, we're gonna start out with just some history and definitions of cannibalism.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So cannibalism, the word dates back to Columbus's second voyage to the Caribbean in 1493. And that's where he encountered people that ate human flesh. He encountered a culture that was their custom of eating human flesh. And so I feel like in all of my research, it was actually really interesting. The thing that kept coming up is how cannibalism is this really controversial anthropological topic, because there's all of this judgment of cultures who eat human flesh. And it's like, it's really just filled with this cultural superiority. Whereas, kind of Western cultures that have not practiced this looked down on, like Columbus referred to as like savages, but really like when you look at it from the historical viewpoint and kind of how it evolved and just evolution wise, we shouldn't judge so much. Like it's maybe not such an
interesting
awful thing. Like we're just looking at it from a lens that it's not like our norm, so we think people are bad for it.
Okay.
But there can be reasons.
I'm willing to hear more,
Right.
but accept my bias.
Like, we judge what is and is not acceptable human behavior, but
Yeah.
also our viewpoint is not necessarily the right. It's just different.
Right.
Yeah.
So, some quotes in looking up cannibals. It's really, like, these are just ones that stood out to me. So, cultures and places that do consume humans, sometimes they talk about how there are certain parts that are favored, like certain parts of humans that like have the best flavor. What do you think?
Like the penis?
Great guess. Incorrect.
I feel like that's not good. That can't be good.
Like, would it be spongy?
Right. Or slippery? I don't know.
Okay, so you're wrong. Do you have a guess? What do cultures that consume human flesh, what do they say is like the tastiest part?
The best part of the whole body.
The whole body.
Like the whole body. Okay.
The whole body. Now, in general, there's one, but then there's also, well, first give me your answer and then I'll.
I'm trying to think of like the whole body. What's good? Maybe something fatty, like your butt.
Okay, see, I was thinking butt.
Or like your eyeballs.
Ew.
Oh, those would like, I want to say like if you bit on an eyeball, it would like squish, like pop like a grape.
Like I really cannot. I love sushi, but I cannot eat the sushi with the little orange bubbles on it, the little fish
those are
eggs.
so good.
Oh my God, I can't because the popping sensation, and that's what I think an eyeball would be, but like magnified.
Oh, they're so good. Like,
They're so
there
good.
was caviar everywhere we went in Iceland. We just got back,
I
and
can't
it was so delicious.
It's so gross.
I
to
never
me.
knew I was a caviar girl, but
Oh, no.
I could literally never.
it's so good. Okay, so it's not. There is, with women specifically, the female breast is apparently desirable. It's pretty tasty. Which, fatty, I can see that. Kind of like
Yeah,
our
but
thought.
fatty is usually the part you don't like. Like on steak, you cut the fat off.
No, but the fat is the most flavorful. Like if it's gristly fat, you don't like it. But if it's like that soft
like
fat,
pork belly.
Yeah, pork belly. Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I gotta go vomit. I'll be right back.
Interesting enough, here's what they say. Other than the breast of a woman, the palms of the hands,
Interesting.
the fingers, and the toes.
What about the tongue?
That wasn't listed as a.
Like toes are disgusting.
Like I
Feet
wonder
are so
why.
gross.
Like I just wonder like what about like the palms of the hands?
How much meat is even on here?
Probably not much, but it must just be tasty.
Interesting.
Yeah. Also, another one of my favorite discoveries that came up when I was researching cannibalism is they were talking about methods for cooking.
Oh God.
And the phrase of whole body roasting and baking came up.
Like what, on like a pig?
Yeah, like a pig spit. But like
Like
whole
just through
body
the butthole,
roasting and
like-
baking.
That sounds
Like I'm actually getting a little nauseous.
Okay, I'll stop talking about those things.
I need some water.
But
wine.
yeah, we have some more Chianti.
Yes.
I'm gonna take a drink.
Ugh.
Okay, so cannibalism. When you break it down, there's different types.
Well, right. I can imagine.
So there's survival cannibalism. There's psychopathological cannibalism, and there's institutionalized cannibalism.
Okay.
So within institutionalized, so that kind of means it's like a cultural thing, which they're actually, when I was researching, like I think it was Papua New Guinea was a culture that had cannibalism that as recently as 2012, there was documentation of cannibalism. But it's actually been since the 70s. Like they're like, no, that's not okay with us anymore.
Right.
But it had been a thing. So within institutionalized, there's some different types. So there's necrocannibalism, and that's when you eat the corpse of someone who's already dead.
Okay.
as opposed to homicidal cannibalism. So that's when you kill someone for food.
I think we can all agree that one's wrong.
Right.
Yeah,
So
but honestly,
yeah.
like, it probably tastes better.
I mean, maybe.
Like, how
'Cause it's
far,
fresher.
fresh
Right.
meat is always better.
Right. But I actually said that wrong. So the institutionalized cannibalism these are the two different types that they have.
I see.
They have the endocannibalism versus exocannibalism.
Oh, like inside and outside?
Yeah.
Nice.
So endocannibalism, that's when you eat someone from within your group.
Oh, I was thinking like intestines.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought when you said inside and out.
Right.
I'm like, okay.
That's what I thought. Like,
No.
Like
the
a
liver.
skin versus
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So endocannibalism, when you eat someone within your group, that's done as like a sign of affection.
Oh.
So that can be like a person has passed on and you eat them to kind of honor them. I've told you guys, like, I know it's weird, but like I've told my husband, I'm like, when I die, like I want you to like
eat you?
just take like a little bit of my ashes and
Stop.
eat it. I think that's
Tom. Okay, actually, we're really sorry, you guys, but Spooky Sips is disbanded. And we're no longer a podcast. We're sorry,
but yeah, no, it's a sign of
but
affection.
neither of us can ever look at Laura again.
Can you
So
imagine any greater love, you guys? Come on.
yes, I can. I can.
Munching on your ash.
Nom, nom, nom.
I mean, you can put it in a drink or like a chocolate or pudding or something.
That's so much worse.
Like your morning oatmeal.
Just a little sprinkle.
That's somehow so much worse. Oh shit.
Okay.
Oh my god. I'm sweating like I'm hot.
I am too. Versus exocannibalism is when you eat someone from outside of your group. And that typically is done as like from aggression.
Okay.
Or that can also include sacrificial cannibalism.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
And then an interesting kind of like offshoot of this that someone was talking about, how they were actually saying that the Christian ritual, and this is maybe a little offensive, but they were saying that the Christian ritual of Eucharist is kind of this symbolic extension of sacrificial cannibalism.
I've heard that.
It's supposed to
Right.
be, it's like the body.
Right.
Right.
I get the argument.
Especially with Catholics, right?
Yeah. No, like I get why
Right.
they would go there.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's keep going with different types of
Okay.
cannibalism.
Okay, yeah.
There's also medicinal cannibalism.
No, there's not.
Really?
So this is things where we kind of got into this when we were talking about the vampires and that it started with an S, that group of people that like believes in drinking blood and stuff.
Oh, right.
So this can include things like drinking blood to cure epilepsy, or it was also thought that if you eat executed criminals, that can you can take part of their strengths by eating them, and it's like a medicine or a tonic. Like if you eat the executed
I could totally
criminals.
see some wild doctor
Yes,
in
100%.
I don't know what year being like, guys, I have an idea.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is
Yeah.
gonna work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of as you were mentioning with Ray Liotta,
Mm-hmm.
there's also autocannibalism or autophagy. And that refers to the act of eating parts of yourself. This can include things like, which you actually wouldn't even think of, but it could include things like hair, nail clippings, mucus, placenta, breast milk.
Yeah.
So it can include things like that where people are kind of voluntarily doing this. Or there's also cases where individuals that are under torture are forced to eat themselves, kind of like Ray Liotta was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually really popular, like with breast milk, to like drink breast milk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or like use it as like face wash if
Yeah.
you like have skin ailments.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Apparently it
or
has
it's like the
like
placenta.
The placenta
is
that's a
huge.
huge. They have it's like a thing now where you can get it like put into a pill.
Yeah.
I've seen
You just
that.
send it somewhere and they
Well-
send you back pills.
Yeah. And there's thoughts of like some theories behind it are, you lose part of yourself when you birth the baby, like with the placenta, you lose it. And so then when you ingest it, that strengthens your bond with the baby. And there's all these like theories behind it.
Yeah.
There's also something called innocent cannibalism, where you're not aware that you're eating human.
Oh, okay.
It's like that story I told you the other day with the baby.
Oh, yeah. Well, you have to tell the story. I'm not doing it. I just talked about that I want people to eat me when I die.
There was this like
a little bit.
there's and it's apparently true. Like it's a true crime thing where like this guy got with a single mom who had a baby and like he was always like super jealous of the attention the baby got. So she like went to work one day and she comes home and she's like, "Oh, where's the baby?" And he's like, "Oh, it's sleeping or something."
Yeah.
And he's like, "But I made dinner." And about halfway through the meal, he was like, "Oh, just kidding. You just ate your baby."
It's so atrocious.
So awful.
That's like the worst thing I've ever
Like,
heard.
I know.
Yeah.
Like I literally, like who would even think of that, let alone actually do it?
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Oh, that's so
Like
sad.
you would just never recover.
No, I don't think you could.
No.
So bad.
No.
Like you could, like, you know, the human spirit.
No, but I don't know
Oh
about
my
it. Yeah,
God.
I know.
Oh.
So anyways, this is a really appetizing episode that we're airing tonight.
So the next one category is sexual cannibalism.
Ew.
And that's the killing and consumption of sexual partners during courtship and during or after copulation. So think about spiders. This is not necessarily talking about humans.
Okay.
It's like it's you know, like a sexual
Like bite their head
thing.
off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do a deep dive in just a minute a little bit more about some of the homicidal cannibalism because that's really where Hannibal went. But I also found this like interesting. So cannibalism is not in the DSM, but I did find this interesting kind of like diagnosis. It's not really a disorder that's like in the DSM. It's considered a culture-bound syndrome. And a culture-bound syndrome is unique to specific ethnic or cultural populations. So it doesn't conform to like the standard psychosis, but it's like specific cultures have recognized ones within themselves.
Okay.
And so this one is called Wendigo psychosis. And that occurs among northern Algonquin Indians living in Canada and the northeastern United States. So it's characterized by delusions of becoming possessed by this flesh-eating monster called Wendigo.
Oh.
And so it manifests by depression, violence, and this compulsive desire for human flesh, and sometimes actual cannibalism.
Interesting. I feel like I've heard about this before.
Yeah,
but I don't know why.
right.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because it's recognized within the cultures, and there's all this history behind how this kind of became a thing within these cultures, and it's like this combination of how you're raised, where like you're very, very nurtured early on, and then as you grow up, it's like this forced kind of like restraint that you have to have. Like you go out and you're supposed to pick between, do you pick food or coal, like to feed yourself or to keep warm? And like if you pick the food, you're actually punished for, whereas if you pick the coal to stay warm, you're rewarded, because like you have this like forced kind of deprivation is validated and like looked up to. But it's really interesting kind of how it can like create this syndrome within these cultures. But there's also, then I went into this like rabbit hole of other culture-bound syndromes, which we'll have to save for another day. But one of the ones is one that we've talked about before. Oh, and now I'm not able to find, I don't see it. But it's one of the ones we've talked about before, but some of the ones like have just very interesting names. Like one is called the Jumping Frenchman of Maine syndrome.
Okay.
This is another one from Canada, and I don't remember all the specifics, but it's basically like I think like lumberjacks who like would go out. They developed this kind of psychosis where they had like uncontrolled body movements, and like it would include jumping, and then they were depressed, and then like it's just all of these culture bound syndromes. I'm like, oh my gosh,
so
I want to hardcore research them.
Yeah.
They're so interesting. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about homicidal cannibalism.
Which are also not in the DSM.
Not in the DSM.
Now, is it a symptom at all? with anything within the DSM?
Well, it's a combination. It can stem from a combination of mental health disorders, but it's never going to be just a mental health disorder that's going to lead to cannibalism. Yeah. It also often will include substance abuse, antisocial personality disorder, and paraphilic behavior. Oh. And paraphilic behavior is abnormal sexual behavior that like involves extreme or dangerous activity. Okay. So it's not necessarily a symptom of anything that's in the DSM, but a lot of times if you do cannibalistic, like homicidal cannibalism, you do have a mental health disorder. Makes sense. But most people with mental health disorders obviously aren't.
Obviously. Yeah.
Right. So it can include vorophilia, which is an erotic desire to consume another individual's flesh, or in turn have your flesh consumed by another human or animal.
So that's what you have.
Kind of, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
That's you.
No, that's you.
So this is where it's a little less spooky sips and a little bit more true crime, but I cannot not tell you guys about this case.
Okay.
So the one like most noted documented case of the vorophilia is there was a man from Toronto. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say some of these things in a podcast.
Yeah.
Oh. But this man from Toronto, and what he had was he had this obsession with analingus, which I'm guessing.
Oh, analingus?
Yeah, analingus, which is probably just what? Kind of
eating ass.
Eating ass. Also, a foot fetish.
Nice.
Also, okay.
But here's where he then went a little further than some normal, or I shouldn't say normal, but some typical sexual fetishes, where he wanted a woman to eat him, specifically then so that he could be defecated by her.
Nice.
He was also like they were trying to like get to like the root of like what was like into him, because it was specifically like he wanted to be pooped out by this woman.
Okay.
The only other thing that they noted was that he did show signs of being turned on when like they asked him to like imagine himself as a body part. Like when he like imagined like if he was an anus, he was like into that.
This is really fascinating, actually.
I was like, what is this case?
Like humans are wild.
Yeah.
They are wild.
So interesting.
An interesting like desire.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what happened to that dude.
Yeah.
But
I hope his dreams came true.
You don't know what happened?
No, I don't. I just read like what his symptoms were and then I moved on.
I hope his dreams came true.
Okay, so when you look at homicidal cannibalism, if you compare like cannibal serial killers to non-cannibals, the ones that are cannibals are more often from lower socioeconomic statuses. Okay. So typically they are more poor. How would you say that? Poorer.
Yeah. I don't know.
Than serial killers that are wealthier.
They're less wealthy.
Yeah.
They also tend to have higher rates than, the standard run-of-the-mill serial killer.
Regular ones.
They have higher rates of abusive pasts. They also tend to have more family members who were criminals.
Interesting.
So there is a statistical difference between serial killers who are also cannibals than those who are not.
It's interesting that there's a difference, but I can't point as to why those differences would lead to
cannibalism.
And obviously, it causes, correlation isn't causation.
Right.
But it's one of those where it's like, I guess it makes sense that there's a difference, but I don't know why.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got some psych theory in just a little bit.
Oh, good.
As to why people do this. So typically, the homicidal cannibal is usually going to be an adult. But there is one case of a 14-year-old female who had no history of psychosis, but then suddenly she was like obsessed with the idea of consuming human flesh.
Interesting.
And they what they diagnosed her with was complex PTSD. from like past traumas. And like suddenly then she like wanted to eat
Interesting.
people. And I think also herself. I think she was like into auto cannibalism.
Okay.
Huh. So the homicidal cannibal typically falls into two categories. One would be that it's kind of a result of severe schizophrenia and psychosis.
Okay.
So this would be where the person engages in cannibalism, like in self-defense to perceived harm.
Okay.
So like they're like kind of paranoid and they're going through the psychosis and like that's going to protect them from things.
Yeah.
That's one category. The other might be where they have mixed personality disorder, where they have these psychopathic and sadistic tendencies that lead to this self-concept of being a cannibal. And that means like being this cannibal means that they can overcome these deep-rooted narcissistic frustrations. Like somehow that's where their mind goes to.
Yeah.
So one study found that most victims of cannibalism are middle-aged white females. So I'm thinking, shit, that's me.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. Also, typically, most cannibals tend to consume the same body parts. So it's not like, and it's not usually like the whole body. It's like you tend to like have a preference. Like,
Body parts.
you know, you like the fillet versus like the T-bone. Like
Right.
you're going to have like a preferred cut.
Of course.
I guess.
Of course.
Well, so gross. And a lot of times the theory is that cannibals, the drive of what they do is for this desire for power, potency, and this kind of, how they phrased it was this omniscient capacity for absorbing another's life essence.
Interesting.
So like you feel like you're God because you just consumed the thing that
Absorbed
made
life.
them like life.
Yeah.
So there's some theories behind, some psych theories behind cannibalism. There was this one person, and I think she's actually more of an anthropologist or a theologist than a psychologist, but Christiva, she had this theory that what drives cannibalism is this denial of loss. And so the person copes by destroying the source of their loss and consuming it to regain a sense of control. So it's like kind of like with Buffalo Bill, like he might feel this loss from like his mom, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But like, so he destroys this representation of what his mom is, destroys it, and then consumes it to gain control back. So it actually kind of makes sense, like from this movie. Whereas Freud, he might say that cannibals are hyperfixated on the oral stage of development. So we've all kind of heard about like the stages of development, like the oral fixation, anal fixation, all these things. But so that would be like when you're a baby, you have your unmet need of like that oral stimulation. And so they develop these psychopathies later in life to compensate for that.
Okay.
And then that's kind of like that consuming that oral fixation with cannibals. And as far as auto cannibalism goes, people might attribute certain meanings to parts of their body, like parts of their hair, their skin, or bodily fluids. And they might then consume them to kind of disconnect and destroy that part of like because of whatever they attribute that meaning to, but then they get to reconnect by consuming it. So it's like, again, that act of like, you get to destroy that thing that has this meaning to you, but then you take the power back and consuming it. So those are some theories as to why problems in life might lead to cannibalism.
Interesting.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it also could just be pure psychobabble, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, but still.
Yes.
Like there are so many really interesting articles out there.
I bet.
Yeah.
So that's a little deep dive into cannibalism. And then I just have a few diagnoses.
Okay.
Okay, so Hannibal. I'm going to diagnose him with antisocial personality disorder. And this one to me is pretty dang clear.
Yeah.
Because he has this pattern of disregard for others.
Yeah.
He doesn't conform to societal norms of, not eating human flesh.
Biting someone's cheek.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. He also has a total lack of remorse.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see this in some of his extreme arrogance. I'm right. I don't feel bad about eating people.
Right.
Because this is I am superior to you and this is what I've chosen to do. He also, what's interesting for him is he doesn't care about the consequences. He actually doesn't even really care about being caught. He wants to be free so he can keep cannibalizing. But he makes it known, yeah, I killed them and I ate them. He doesn't try to hide it.
Right.
No.
So they actually don't go into this too much in this movie. I think they might get to it later in later movies, but there are some people who have deep dived as to Hannibal's causes for being a cannibal. Because he has a history of trauma. So his trauma that, again, we didn't learn about in this movie, but you would in others. So he grew up in World War II, and he actually witnessed his parents' murder. Oh my gosh. And that's why, oh my gosh, I'm about to blow your mind.
Okay.
So he witnessed his parents' murder. Then he witnessed, after his parents murdered, he witnessed his sister be murdered and then cannibalized by Nazis.
Oh.
Hence that repeating pattern of Buffalo Bill.
Yes.
And then he grew up in an orphanage and there was all this abuse. So that's kind of where the theory behind some of Hannibal's trauma came from. Yeah. So that's what I diagnosed Hannibal with. For Clarice, I'm just going to diagnose her with some, hard PTSD.
Yeah. Fair.
Some stuff she needs to work through.
I also think she's doing a bit of overcompensating for the multiple losses she had in her childhood. I feel like she's trying to work a little too hard, prove a little too much to be successful, just to kind of overcome those losses.
Yeah.
So she's got to work through some of that. And then Buffalo Bill, I am not going to psychoanalyze him, but I'm going to just recap what Hannibal has psychoanalyzed.
Okay.
So Buffalo Bill, according to Hannibal, he even says, he goes, "Our Billy wasn't born a criminal, Clarice. He was made one through years of systematic abuse." So Buffalo Bill had this dream about constructing a woman skin suit. And that, I think Hannibal would say, represents his innermost yearning to be reunited with his mother. It's very Freudian. So he's driven by denial and repression. So he kind of transfers his repressed sexual identity into the form of killing women. So specifically oversized females and turning their skin into a suit for him to wear so that he can be closer to this woman persona that he has always dreamed of being.
Yeah.
So that's where
Cute.
That's where he gets his drive from.
Yeah.
Nice.
What do we think of that psychoanalysis? Do we think that fits
I think so.
them?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't get a lot
Right.
of background
Right.
in this movie.
No, we don't.
It sounds like with Hannibal we get more later ones, but yeah, I mean, given the background that we get, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, it's actually very psych heavy.
Oh,
I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the whole
right.
point
The whole point.
Uh-huh.
And it's just so interesting because they always joke around about psychologists, and I think even psychiatrists more, but psychologists are the most effed up people. We're the ones that are the craziest, right?
Right.
Which feels right.
Speaking from personal experience.
I mean,
agreed.
I can't disagree with it.
Oh my gosh.
But so I just love the fact that it's someone who represents the most extreme just divergence of human behavior. And there's a word I'm trying to think of, but I can't think of it. But he just does exactly the opposite of what is acceptable.
Yep.
And he's the psychologist or the psychiatrist.
Yeah.
We love it.
That was a fun psych deep dive, and by fun I mean we wanted to throw up.
Yeah, I mean,
really upsetting,
nauseating, but
because it's just so interesting to think about. Well, okay, so my husband and I also recently watched, and I don't think we've talked about this on the show. We recently watched the show about the rugby team that crashed in the Andes.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's an old movie called Alive, also a great movie. It's like a 1992 movie or something.
Yeah.
And then a new movie came out on Netflix, and I think it's called like Society of Snow or something like that.
Oh, okay. I feel like I've seen the preview, but I haven't watched either of those.
They're both so good, and they do a really good job of showing like that's survival cannibalism.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And it's really kind of interesting to think about if you're faced in that situation where it really is to the point where you die or you try to survive by eating someone who's already dead, who's been preserved on ice. Would you do? It's a really interesting psychological question.
Yeah.
No, it is, because like I think even when I think about it, like I actually get nauseated at the thought of like cannibalism, which is probably like one of those mechanisms that's supposed to be there. Like we aren't supposed to, we're not supposed to want to eat each other, that I'm like, could I even do it? Like if I really had to, could I do it? Or would I just be sick and not get any, I don't know.
I know.
I feel like the like key thing for me is that like someone who's already dead.
Right.
It's like, well, they died.
Right.
And so that's why this is an option.
Agreed.
Right.
Versus, okay, there's 6 of us.
Sorry,
In
babe.
theory,
Who's got to go?
Right.
Go for the palms first. It's the tastiest part.
Yep.
So I think with that, where it's like, okay, assuming you don't have to commit murder, if it's your only option for survival,
Right.
and you see a legitimate chance of hopefully being like rescued or surviving,
Right.
It's like, I mean, it's hard to like think. I can't say like I would definitely do it, but it's like I have a feeling at some point wanting to live kicks in,
right? Yeah, would be the predominant.
And would push you to being able to do it, but.
I'm the same.
Because
I actually don't even eat a lot of meat. Like sometimes meat just freaks me out.
Yeah.
But even so, I feel like I would.
Yeah.
I feel like, and again, it's because they're already dead. You absolutely will die if you don't. But I think it is kind of a ingrained thing in us to not want to eat people. And in my research, like there's so much I didn't talk about.
Oh yeah.
But like. It can cause diseases. Like if it's like this brain encephalitis or something like you can get it from folded proteins that happen when you consume human.
Yeah.
So that can happen. I think it's not very safe to eat other humans.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're eating a human, you don't really care about that too much. But yeah.
So
disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting thought-provoking questions on what would you do.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
On that note, do we have any more?
I think we can run a few more fun facts. Yeah. This one has a lot, obviously.
Well,
it's a beloved movie that's been out for a long time.
Yeah.
But I think we could just talk about some just like miscellaneous fun ones to wrap it up. Okay, so with the exception of the head in the jar scene, all of the dead victims were like real people with realistic makeup. It wasn't dummies.
Okay.
So it's some of them were just laying there naked with makeup on them.
Wow.
Sometimes like outside and stuff, but they used like real, and I feel like they looked so realistic.
I agree.
And I agree. So their makeup department crushed.
Yes.
Well, it's funny because I actually was wondering that when they did the autopsy where they took the pictures of the girl's mouth.
Yeah.
Because I thought, that looks so real. That doesn't look fake at all.
Right.
But I was like, how is she so still?
Yeah.
If it is real. So it's interesting that it is.
I think just good actors committed to it.
Hold your breath.
Practice.
Yeah. So when this movie came out, it came out in time for award season, and it absolutely crushed.
Yeah.
See, horror movies don't often do that. That's cool.
And I think they were very strategic with this movie. They knew they wanted to go for like an Oscar or something. And so even they wouldn't let like certain like magazines or bloggers or things cover it because they didn't want to go too far into like the horror genre.
No, and actually if you like watch the old trailers, it is not, it does not give off horror.
Yeah.
It gives off more of like a thriller.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is one of only 3 movies to win what are considered the top 5 Oscars, which is Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, Best Picture, and Best Screenplay.
Nice.
They took all of them.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Which is very impressive. Especially because it is a horror movie.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the only 2 other movies who have done it is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Okay.
And It Happened One Night, which I've never heard of.
I don't even know.
I've heard of it.
34.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Oh, one thing that when I read it, I didn't believe it, is that Clarice and Hannibal only share 4 scenes.
Because there's a few interviews.
And like
That's
on the
it.
phone
That's
and
it.
stuff, but like in the same room.
Yeah, like where they're in the same room. Yeah.
Huh.
Which, I mean, their dynamic
is the movie.
Yeah.
Like that is the movie.
That is so much, I mean, it's solving it, but like it's their dynamic and their relationship. And I mean, I feel like we've talked about, them and them together so much.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think of like how little time
Wow.
they actually spent
That
together.
really just speaks to, again, that kind of the acting and the screenplay.
Yes.
Like,
agreed.
because I would have thought more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So along with that, Sir Anthony Hopkins only had 24 minutes and 52 seconds of screen time, making it the second shortest to win an Academy Award for Best Actor.
Wow.
And in terms of percentage, he technically has the shortest, because he only appears in 21% of the film.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That really is interesting. When you think of Silence of the Lambs, like you think of him.
Exactly.
I know. I don't even think of Buffalo Bill. I think of Hannibal.
I always forget about Buffalo Bill.
Mm-hmm.
But really, like, this movie was more about Buffalo Bill, like, as far as the time-wise.
Yes.
And storyline-wise, what they spent time on was more Buffalo Bill, but really, through Hannibal, oh my gosh, it's so good.
I think it just shows how much with that
with a little time.
Originally, for the role of Clarice, it wasn't going to be Jodie Foster. They were hoping to get Michelle Pfeiffer.
You know what? I can see Michelle Pfeiffer. She's an amazing
I think
actress.
she actually would have done. This is one of those where it's like, okay, I could see that going.
Jodie Foster did good, and I like it because she's probably wasn't as big,
right?
But
my only thing is, like, I feel like with Michelle Pfeiffer, like, she is very that role. Like, it's Michelle Pfeiffer in the movie, not Clarice. Like, whereas Jodie Foster was Clarice, but that would be Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
To me,
but maybe
least.
not
like,
then. Maybe not 91.
Right.
Yeah.
But watching it now.
Yeah.
Right.
So the reason she ultimately turned it down is because they were not willing to pay her the $2 million she asked for.
Yeah.
So that's why it ended up moving on to Jodie Foster.
Yeah.
Who, after she read the novel, Jodie Foster tried to buy the rights to this movie.
Oh.
Because she liked it so much. She was like, yeah, we could make this into a movie. But someone else had already, the people making this movie had already bought the rights to it.
Okay.
But, so that's just like from the very beginning, Jodie Foster like wanted this role.
Nice.
Like she knew she wanted it. And I guess the director was a little hesitant to have her. But on her first meeting, he knew that it was her. He said it was like the way that she just walked down the hallway the first time they met. He was like, okay, I can see
this is it.
Yeah.
Yep.
She's perfect for it because she does seem so like young and innocent and strong, but sensitive.
Yes.
Like strong, but like,
still new.
Still new. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we talked about how it did really well, and apparently it recouped its entire budget within the first week of release.
Damn.
Okay. Do we know how old Jodie Foster was in this movie?
Oh, I don't. I mean, she
just looks like such a baby.
She looked like a college student.
Yeah.
I know.
Like a real baby. Yeah.
She was born in 62. So she would have been 30. Like 30.
Wow.
30?
Right? Because 62, 91. Right?
She looked.
She would be 29.
Yeah,
30. 29, 30.
Okay, she looked 19.
Yeah. Agreed.
That's wild.
Dang, girl. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Huh.
I would have believed 19.
Yeah. Well, and that's why when you were talking about like that she wanted to buy it, I was like, wow, that's impressive for being like a 20-year-old.
For a 20-year-old.
Like,
Right.
That's really responsible and ambitious of her.
I
know. But okay, if she was basically okay.
Yeah. Oh, so I guess the author of Silence of the Lamb is very reclusive. He doesn't, make a lot of appearances and stuff, and he was not involved with the making of this movie. And I think there's like a rumor that he like has never watched the movie, but apparently he did because he sent all of the Oscar recipients a case of wine.
Oh, cute.
Nice.
So he's quietly showed support for this movie.
Yeah,
right.
But is very reclusive.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Huh. Wow.
So I think I'll end on that that fun fact.
It's just such a
good
discussion and like crazy topic.
No, there's just so much that you could like deep dive into, I feel like. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was so much more we could have done, but this is not a 5-hour podcast.
Right.
So.
All right. So here on Spooky Sips, we don't give stars, we give sips. So I will be interested to hear, what are your sips for this movie out of 5?
For me, I feel like this is such a good movie and I've seen it multiple times. There are a few things that I don't love where there's just a few moments. I feel like it's a little long.
Yeah.
Like there was just some times where I was like, okay, maybe be done with the movie.
Yeah.
But I've also seen it so many times. So it's not perfect, but it's close. So for me, it's a 4.5 sips.
Nice.
Yeah, no, I was thinking right around the same lines. Where it's like it's so good, but like not quite like perfect. I mean, not that I don't know if there is a perfect movie out there, but like not quite there. Right. So I was also thinking 4.5.
Samey.
Oh my gosh, we're unanimous.
I love it. That's where I'm at because like we just watched The Shining, and for me that's a 5. Like, so like this is so close because it's so good. But all right, so next time on Spooky Sips, we will be watching the 2024. That feels like it takes a really long time to say 2024. I don't know why.
Is there a non-2024?
Right? I don't know, but just sometimes just for Googling purposes.
Okay,
so, anyways, the 2024 movie Night Swim. So get watching and get sipping.
Goodbye.
And we'll see you next time on Spooky Sips. Bye. Oh my gosh.
Thank you for listening to Spooky Sips. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening. To stay up to date on all the spooky things we're up to, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at SpookySips_podcast. And if you want to help support the podcast, consider buying us a coffee, or really a cocktail. We are completely independent, so every little bit goes a long way to keeping our podcast running and improving. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.